Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me, as always, is your other co-host, John. John, how are you doing this evening? I know you're not feeling your best.
Yeah, not feeling my best. I've been pretty sick since last Friday, but I lost my voice for a few days, so it's slowly coming back. We're gonna work through this. I'm really, disappointed I wasn't able to be there on the last podcast, but it was awesome of our friend Seth, also known as Scooby, to come in a pinch and really help out. Man, it was great. He did a great job. We're just really happy that he was able to do that for us, and
Yes, thank you,
it was
Seth.
great. Yeah. So that was awesome. Loved it. Great pod. You guys did great. Of course, not a surprise. It was fun to listen to. Yeah, look forward to hopefully having more people on in the future. It'll be
We
great.
got
So
Seth to publicly praise the Gophers, so now it's on tape, buddy. It's on tape. We got you. We're going to pull that out in an embarrassing moment when you're hating on us, and we're going to have you praising Minnesota.
Yeah, he was capable, everyone. It's amazing. That was actually the whole plan this whole time. And we
Yeah,
got it.
it was really, we suckered him into it. We got you. No. But you did
man.
help us out, so thank you for that.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, man. So, yeah, man. Other than that, dude, things are good. I'm just gearing up, gonna be heading out of town, and be on the road for a couple months, but in that whole transition period. But hopefully, gonna feel better by then. And other than that, dude, fall's here. It's great. Love it.
I love that fall is actually here.
Yeah.
Getting that weather. Already got circled in the calendar. The Gophers have a bye this week, but then next week we play Maryland, and the high right now is like 61, 62.
Yeah.
And I'm just hoping we could get even into the 50s by then, maybe a little bit.
That'd be perfect.
Really be crisp.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to have after having 7 warm weather games, having to actually have a game with a different with an actual fall feel.
Well, and just not a night game, man.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to just not having to stay up until and I know I'm an old man, but it's just I like having that variation either way. I like some night games, I do.
Yeah.
But it feels like that's like all we've had this year.
We've had a lot. We've had a lot of them. It's been intense. I will say, along with the night game thing, that oh my god, I completely lost my train of thought. It's gone. out the door, gone.
Did you
All right,
like?
Chuck,
I mean,
go on with what you were saying, and I'll
no,
see if
I mean,
I can
I was just
recreate it.
wondering, did you have a thought on what your favorite thing is? It's why you do like night games, or why you don't like night games, why you think it's good for us, why it's bad for us. I mean, I know that it's it definitely creates an atmosphere during certain games,
Yeah.
which I think is great, and I think the USC game was a prime example of that.
Yes.
But I think
you can have an atmosphere at 2:30 though too.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And you can even have an atmosphere at an 11 a.m. game if the crowd gets there early enough and doesn't just podunk tailgate and not get there till the end of the first quarter.
Which I think we've been getting better at over the last few years. I've seen that improve where it was definitely an issue for a while.
I remember what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I don't want to get ahead of myself. We're talking about that's next week. Right now we got the bye week, John. And I want to talk about why I like the bye week.
Yeah.
Because the thing about the bye week is that the Gophers cannot lose. They can't lose. And when the Gophers can't lose, I just really relax.
Me too.
And when I'm doing my workout, I'm just feeling good. And then I just get real loose. And then I'm sitting there sipping my Diet Coke with 2 games on, trying to watch both at the same time. And it feels like there's no stakes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm watching these teams that are both living and dying on every snap, and they're all it's high stakes for them, but I'm just relaxed.
Yep.
And I like the bye week for that. We get 2 bye weeks this year.
Yep.
Which is, I like when we have 2 bye weeks also, because then the games are more stretched out and you can, you get that extra week of games. So yeah, I love the bye week. The bye week is great. The team gets to get healthy and the team gets to do a lot of good stuff. I was saying, it's funny. I asked when I was at a Gopher event. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, put on by IFA, the agency, and I
Yeah.
met half a dozen Gophers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so that came up. I asked them like, when do they most want to play, and they said 2:30.
Oh, okay.
And they said, and I said, not the night game with, you get a little more atmosphere, whatever. And Justin Wally was like, or excuse me, we'll edit that out. One of the Gopher players was like, you have to sit around all day.
Yeah.
So,
But it's tough, man. Like, I get that. I totally understand that. And I think that's why you and I mean, just even as fans, like, it's tough when you're waiting all day with that anticipation. And sometimes maybe that like works in your favor because like it's all of that built up energy. And I'm sure as a player, like that it all comes out. But sometimes I feel like it's a little too much. It's a little too long, and then you
yeah.
maybe like in a way even though you're still like mentally amped, your body is just not as engaged. You've already like, exerted so much of that nervous energy out. And then
Yeah.
it kind of can cause you to fall flat on your face, So
Sometimes the best thing in the world is to play right away at 11 a.m. and just do it.
yeah,
But the only thing is, you just don't want to be sleepy. It's so easy to be sleepy in those early games. But I would rather, I mean, when I'm going to a game, I've said this before, I'd rather go to a morning game or a night game.
Yeah.
Because then you only miss parts of one block of games.
Yeah.
When you go to the 2:30 game, you miss the second half of the 11 a.m. games, and you also miss the first quarter of the evening games first quarter plus the evening games, and that just annoys me. So that's why I'm not big on 2:30 games myself. Yeah. But the players like them, and it is a vibe for sure. And it's like probably the right amount of time to tailgate before people get totally out of control. They have enough hours to really, they can start at 7, 8 a.m. and still get, have 4 or 5 hours to do it, but they're not doing it all day. So they're not just totally wrecked by the time they go to the game. And that's probably better for some people anyway.
Yeah. And it also leaves time for like I think as students, then you still know you have time to party after the game too. Like it's not gonna be so late. Not that they wouldn't anyways, but you know what I mean? Like it's like, okay, cool. Like we can make plans and do more stuff after.
Oh yeah. No, I love tailgating, going student days, going to the game, getting in a power nap, and then going out.
Yeah.
Just that was as an undergrad, that was how I wanted to do
it. Nice. Well, those days are long behind us now.
Yes, they are.
I'm so glad and so happy that the students now have the opportunity to do those kinds of stuff, and especially on campus now that the bank is where it is. So
yes,
which is amazing. So yeah, man. But yeah, dude, like I'm glad I was able to watch football all weekend. And I'm looking forward to hopefully feeling better this Saturday and getting to enjoy it as well, not just like sick on the couch. So
yes, absolutely. I hope you are feeling better by then as well.
Yeah. So just bear with me, everybody. I might be coughing here and there, but I'll do my best to keep that out of here, but we'll do what we can. So, before we get started, though, I wanted to just go over, as always, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSAT. You can find Mike at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can email us also at We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com. So I wanted to touch on a couple things that I know we talked about over this last weekend, and this is maybe a little bit of old news, but I feel like it's worth talking about. And the first thing is the SEC Big Ten possibility of a scheduling non-conference, I guess, kind of same thing that like they do with basketball, like the ACC Challenge and the Big Ten ACC Challenge and all that kind of stuff. Where they would pair up, I would assume, comparable Big Ten and SEC teams together. I don't know exactly the full plan, whether it's going to be the same teams, like a home and home, and then like switch it around a little bit here and there each season, or they didn't give a lot of details, but that's the plan. Essentially, is having some kind of scheduling agreement between the Big Ten and the SEC. And there was obviously some talk previously, which we touched a little bit on, with the Rudy Project, which was basically Let's just say essentially it was the SEC and the Big Ten propping up the ACC and the Big 12.
Yeah.
Like that's really
Basically just a giveaway.
Yeah.
Just a Santa Claus giveaway.
Yeah, it was the ACC.
For no reason at all.
Yeah, it was the ACC, the Big 12, and let's put it this way for real, because Jack Swarbrick was a big part of it. It was Notre Dame trying to find their way so they could maintain their independence and stay in the ACC scheduling agreement that they have, and not have to, give up any more power and still get paid somehow by the Big Ten and the SEC, which the Big Ten and the SEC, Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey basically told Jack Swarbrick and Notre Dame, go bleep yourself. So, which good for them, because that's exactly what they should have done, because the Big Ten and the SEC do not need this, don't need the Rudy Project. If they wanted to do something like that, they can do it on their own, and they would, and they should, if that was in their best interest. I still don't like the idea, but I think if that's the way it went, there's zero reason to bring anybody else on board. You can do it within your own conference. Both of you are already super leagues, essentially. So what's the point in propping somebody else up? That is essentially, they're just going to drag you down anyways. That's not how business is done. That's not capitalism, in this world, in this country. So that's not how it works.
But it just doesn't make any sense when you have all the leverage and you're generating the majority of the money. Exactly. You're not just going to hand it out and make that even. Yeah. When you're when the leagues that are generating the most money are going to get the most revenue, period.
Yeah, there's no reason to have equal shares of revenue going to conferences that aren't bringing in the same level of viewers, not even close. Like, not can't bring in the same numbers.
Close.
No, not the same. Not even remotely close to the amount of money. Like, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever for the Big Ten and the SEC. And like we already stated, they just don't need it. There's no point. So that's kind of what that is. But this scheduling agreement, the other thing, to touch on, and speaking of Notre Dame, is that what this has made clear is that the SEC is no longer going to protect Notre Dame to try to keep the Big Ten from acquiring Notre Dame. But also the Big Ten has made it clear that their interest in Notre Dame is far less now than it ever has before, because seeing all the numbers, which they were, projected previously is just, a projection. Now they're seeing the actual numbers and the amount of money that is coming in from this new Big Ten, this new league with all the new members. And they're now able to see the proof of how much more money they are already making and going to make in the future. And with the Big Ten and the SEC projected to probably get to 20 teams each, at least, if not a little bit more, but I think at least 20.
I hope not more.
But if they did get to 20, let's just say that the Big Ten does not, out of the two teams they add, they don't need or care if that's Notre Dame anymore.
Yeah.
That brand, as big as it is, as historic as it is just not needed. It never really was, but now the Big Ten, I think, knows for sure, after what they've seen with the numbers this year, that Notre Dame is no longer necessary or needed or wanted, and they can make that money and more without them. And so now Notre Dame is now where they were kind of still a part of the conversation. They are 100% on the outside looking in now, for certain, and they're screwed. Like the walls are closing in on Notre Dame, and they're either going to have to make a choice, which I'm sure there's still an open invitation from the Big Ten at this point, but that time they're definitely on the clock. And I think that, and if they don't, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to create their own leagues, and Notre Dame will be utterly irrelevant. So
yeah. I mean, I'm, I wish nothing but ill on the Irish. I hope they lose every Saturday. I'm not going to pretend like sorry if you're a Notre Dame fan. I'm going to be honest about my biases. I don't like your program. I don't like what it stands for, and I hope you lose. Just being real.
Yep. So essentially, that's kind of what I wanted to touch on. Now, do I want this scheduling agreement to happen between the SEC? And let's go back to just the Big Ten here and the SEC. No, not necessarily. I don't like that.
No, we don't need it. Schools need the autonomy to create their own out of conference schedules.
Yeah.
And here's why: because schools in the SEC, in the Big Ten, that need to drum up, that need to keep fans engaged, need to be able to schedule themselves to bowl eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
And when in the Big Ten, where you have 9 conference games, you have to win, you have to go at least 3-6, you know? And then if you lose any of your out of conference games, you have to do better than that, you know, just to get to a bowl game. And that's a problem. Like, schools need to be able to get themselves to the postseason. And I think having a scheduling agreement is just putting a 10th difficult game and, you know, and forcing it onto these schools. And also, it also creates chaos because, John, these schools have scheduled things 10, 12 years out, games wise, you know, and like for Minnesota, for instance, already has 2 home and homes in the future with SEC teams scheduled.
Yep.
They're going to do Mississippi State in, I think, 26 and 27 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Alabama in the early 2030s.
Yep.
So, and you go across the conference, and I'm sure everyone else has a lot of, and the thing is, and also then if you force that scheduling agreement, then you're not, you know, having as many games against, you know, ACC schools or Big 12 schools or whatever, which kind of hurts the diversity of college football.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want it to be a thing where the only power conference teams we ever play are from the SEC, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I want to see at all out of conference. I want there to be diversity. Like, that's what makes it fun, that you get to go to all kinds of different places and different leagues and different whatever, you know? And also just, I don't like it. I don't like it. And it's also will be used artificially. If they do it, then every year, whatever the record is going to be spun as somehow the SEC is better than the Big Ten because of how it went. Even the Big Ten will probably could win more games, and they'd be like, well, what did they win the right games? You know what I mean? Like, it would just, I don't even want to have that conversation.
Yep.
I don't want to deal with it.
No. Well,
so I don't really like anything about the idea of this scheduling agreement at all.
No.
I hope it's something that doesn't go anywhere.
Oh, I'm with you too. Like it'll be looked at as if, like, let's say there are like I mean, I don't know if they put this Big Ten SEC matchup game like somewhere, like, you know, into the season, and let's say like both conferences were already starting their conference games, but then they throw this in the middle. Like, it'll be like, oh, well, I mean, it was a letdown game for that SEC team because they had to play a Big Ten team, and so that was essentially a trap game because the Big Ten team was clearly terrible, and so they just weren't. You know, they were looking ahead to an actual conference foe, which is,
I don't.
You know, like
I love that we're having a conversation about hypothetical SEC propaganda. I don't even want to. I feel dirty. I need a shower. We got to move on, John. We're gonna move on.
But that's just how ridiculous it is. So the point is that's just, you know, whatever. You're right. So anyway, but that's it's not something we want. But unfortunately, it could be something that happens. But first, you know, the SEC has to, you know, maybe go to like 9 conference games. Let's see how that goes first.
Yeah, why don't they do that? Put the focus there.
Yeah.
SEC, why don't you play your 9 conference games and stop doing a thing where you're playing 2 FCS teams a year? Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Because do you really want to add a Big Ten,
No, you know they don't.
No,
they don't. They don't want to deal with that. They don't want that smoke.
Nope.
They don't want to come to Big Ten, especially the road games. They don't want to come to Big Ten country and have to deal with the fans.
No.
Yeah. No.
It would be kind of funny though, like where they have their annual layup in November that they had to come up north and play a Big Ten team.
They would never agree to that. Never, ever, 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 ever.
No, you're right.
But I love the idea. I love the idea of doing it in November. That would be amazing. That would be enough to make me almost want to get on board. I still don't like it.
Yeah.
But that would be enough. Yeah.
It would be a compromise I might be willing to live with. So, you know, but
sure.
Yeah, man. So yeah, that's it. Oh, and you wanted to touch on something else as well before we got into the game.
Oh yeah. So we had a request from on Twitter at Matt Rules Smock, who's saying that he just is kind of amazed at the reaction to the Oregon loss from the Ohio State fan base and how they're kind of not really accepting defeat, some of them. and are kind of just making a lot of excuses and doing a lot of belly aching. And so he wanted us to touch on that. And I thought, that's interesting because we've heard some belly aching from a couple different helmet school fan bases, not least of which is USC.
Yeah. Yeah.
And USC complained after they lost to Minnesota, and they
Mhm.
complained just as much after they lost to Penn State.
And it's all the
Maybe more.
refs' fault. Yeah, and it's
Maybe
all the
more.
refs' fault.
All the
Like,
refs' fault. Yep.
it's not because they got outplayed or outcoached. It
It's
is
not because they
strictly
can't close.
Nope.
It's
It's
definitely not
because
that.
the refs. Yep, that's it. Big Ten referee, Big Ten officiating. It's trash. It's terrible. And that's why we lost these games. Joel Klatt said we'd be undefeated if we could just do these one things, or if that game wasn't given to Minnesota at the end, or this was, like it's, whatever. It's all this. They try to spin it in one way or another, and this happens every year to a point with every team. I get it, and
And Joel
it's not
Klatt
that,
didn't even say that either.
no,
That's like just what they
that's
like
what they're
try to
running with,
twist it.
though.
That's what they're running and pretending like he did.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he didn't, and so, but that's it, and not to say full. I do think that the Big Ten officiating has not been amazing, but officiating across all of college football has not been amazing. So
football's a really hard sport to officiate.
Yes.
Football and basketball, man.
Yeah.
It's easy to officiate, say, baseball.
Yeah.
I would even say it's easy to officiate soccer.
Sure.
But like football and basketball are messy sports, dude.
It's true.
There's a lot going on. It's hard to see everything. And in football, there's so many people playing. I don't know. It's tough. They have a tough job. So I sympathize. I sympathize with officials. And I think overall the Big Ten officiating could be a lot better, but it could also be a lot worse.
I agree. And you also have to understand that calls are missed on both sides. It really is.
That's the thing. It's the guy. Refs are pretty consistent. The thing is, I don't care whatever I just want consistency.
Yes.
I just want the officials to be consistent from game to game, from play to play.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to see. And I see officials, and like I'll settle for officials being consistent inside one game, right? If you can be consistent and like just call it both ways and whatever, yeah, I can be happy about it. So it's that. And also, like, let's there's another thing I have to address before we move on. The absurdity of Ohio State ever complaining about calls ever, because nobody gets calls like Ohio State and Michigan get calls.
Yeah.
Ohio State and Michigan get better calls and more favorable whistles consistently than anybody else in the Big Ten, period. Not even Penn State. Penn State does not get whistles like Ohio State and Michigan get. They get and anyone who says differently is not living in the real world. I'm going to be honest about that. So for Ohio State fans, even if you got jobbed, let's say they did get jobbed. Let's say it wasn't, and I don't think it was offensive pass interference. I don't. But let's say it wasn't and they got jobbed. I still don't care because you've gotten so many whistles over so many games over so many years that I just don't want to hear it from Ohio State fans when for once it doesn't work out for you.
And let's just be honest, you said like, Ohio State fans and Michigan fans and any of these helmet schools, most of you don't live in the reality that the vast majority of us do. And who have to deal with calls like that all the time, especially when we're playing against you.
Yes.
So don't expect any sympathy from fan bases like ours. Like, I get it. You could be upset about certain things and certain calls, but at a certain point, man, you got to let it go, and just like we have to, and move on. And, unless you're another certain fan base, but that's them. But sorry. I didn't mean to go back to that. But yeah, no, it's just, it is what it is, man, and it was a good game, and Oregon is a great team.
They're both great teams. They're great teams.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about this game, but like, you're probably going to meet up again in the Big Ten championship game. Let's be honest. So you'll probably get another shot.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
That's all. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. That's enough on that. Should we get into previewing these week 8 games?
Yes, let's do that.
I am excited about this week, John. There are some games I've been eyeing for weeks. So, not the first one is not one of them, but it is interesting. It will be played on Friday, October 18th. We've got the number 2, 6-0 Oregon Ducks going to West Lafayette to play the 1-5 Purdue Boilermakers. This is a 7 p.m. game on Fox. The line is Oregon by 27.5. Oregon put the college football world on notice by upsetting Ohio State on Saturday. Was a fantastic game, and Oregon got contributions from all its key players and more. Well, except for Trayshawn Holden, because he got himself kicked out for spitting. But for everybody else, they showed up. QB Dylan Gabriel and running back Jordan James were great. Wide receiver Tez Johnson did Tez Johnson things. But in Trayshawn Holden's absence, Evan Stewart went off with 149 yards receiving. I'm going to be really interested to see if his role increases coming off such a breakout performance. Like, do we see him featured more as the year goes on after he abused Denzel Burke like that? Because that was wild. Illinois is a good team. So it's notable that Purdue nearly knocked them off, because Purdue played its best half of football in the second half against Illinois last week. They outscored the Illini 40-19, forcing overtime, where they lost on a failed 2-point conversion. So the Boilermakers seem to have found something, John, with backup QB Ryan Brown, who was electric with his arm and with his legs. A dimension Hudson Card does not give this offense. So first question, right off the bat, is there a QB controversy in West Lafayette? And if there isn't, should there be?
Well, my man Hudson Card, I'm sorry, buddy. I've been one of your biggest cheerleaders for a couple years now, but I think your spot just got usurped, man. I really think that Ryan Brown just showed out in a way, and this is not to take away from Hudson Card's talent. When he's on fire, he's on fire. But dude, this guy was playing backyard football, slinging it all over the field, running whenever he wanted to. He was having a blast, and he was looking great. He was looking like a freaking superstar.
Really good. Really good.
Yeah. So I don't see, honestly, when you almost beat a ranked opponent and you put up 49 points, like, dude, how do you not play Ryan Brown at this point?
I think you have to, right?
He threw for 297 yards and ran for 118, averaging almost 7 yards when he would, and then average 7 yards a rush, and then averaging 11.4 a pass. And so, like, with 3 touchdowns, like, dude, you just can't.
Well, and on top of that, Purdue's offensive line isn't very good. Let's be real. So, like, if you have the choice between a mobile quarterback and a not mobile quarterback, the mobile quarterback could be your best, like we could have said hypothetically could have been your best option, but now we saw it on the field and he is your best option.
And against Oregon, you're going to need a guy like that who's a playmaker and his electric both through the air and on the ground.
So yeah, I think Hudson Card's days in West Lafayette are numbered. Is he out of eligibility, or does he have another year?
I'm not sure, but I feel like he's been playing for like 7-8 years now.
It does seem like it.
Because he started at Texas, remember?
Yeah.
And then did he go somewhere else before Purdue, or am I mistaken?
No, he went to Purdue directly from Texas.
Okay. Yeah. So
let's see. I don't know. This says 23. That can't be right. No, age 23. Okay.
Did he have a COVID year?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. I hope he has another year to play somewhere and show out and like maybe go to a group of 5 school or something.
Yeah.
Or go to or even a different power conference school. But it's just like, this guy is, I think, what Purdue needs.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I totally agree. They need somebody who's going to invigorate them, going to put in some, just some kind of life, because they didn't have any up until this point. and he gave it to him in a big way. And I know it
I mean,
took a little while.
they should have beaten Illinois. They had them. They
Absolutely.
had them.
Yeah. And I know this is not a review pod. I know, but you and I, we didn't get to talk about it. But like, you're right. Like they had him, and it was a little slow. But when Ryan Brown got going, dude, he was on fire. So yeah, I think if you're playing against this Oregon team, you're gonna need him. Devin Mockabee also like was able to get his legs going.
Right,
And
because
he
when the
was effective.
QB's a threat, then you
Yep,
have to account for him, and that's one fewer tackler.
exactly. So I think you got to roll with Ryan Brown. I and and I understand that Oregon just came off of a big win, a big emotional win. And now it's time for the Spoilermakers to make good on their name and to welcome Oregon into the Big Ten and and cause the upset next week. I think that's the way it's gonna that's how it goes. I mean, that's the Big Ten football gods require a
Right?
sacrifice every year. And unfortunately for you, Oregon, it is
It's
more
your
often than not
turn.
the Spoilermakers, and we've all gone through it. We've all done it more than once, probably
All
than
everyone's had a season ruined by Purdue at some point.
So here it is. We told you that some teams will show up, and it could be even Purdue, and destroy someone's season. And you're on
Look,
deck, Oregon.
I'm just
So
gonna. Here's what I'm gonna say. It's a short week. It's a Friday game, right?
yep.
And on top of that, Oregon's got Illinois next week.
Hmm.
So maybe they got caught looking ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe you're thinking about, I don't know. The crazy things happen in West Lafayette.
They do.
It's no, yes, the Boilermakers have a history of overcoming giant spreads to beat top 5 teams at home. That's true. There's no question. Are the Ducks the latest victims? Maybe they're looking ahead. Maybe they're not locked in. I don't know, man. I think the Ducks play poorly for a half, but ultimately still win big. Dylan Gabriel just seems like he's on a mission. And I think they get off to a slow start, but I think he will go off on this hapless Purdue defense, which is arguably the worst in the whole Big Ten. Now, do I think Purdue will score some points with Ryan Brown? Yeah, absolutely. I think Oregon will score some points. I think Purdue will score some points. But I just think Oregon's got too much juice. So what do you think? What do you got for how do you see this one playing out?
Oh man. I really, really want to pick Purdue just because like we've all seen it before, and I want to see this
Yeah.
happen. No offense, like there's nothing personal, Oregon fans. Like it really isn't. This is just something that we've all had to go through, and I feel like you might as well just get it out of the way. Um, but yeah, I agree. Man, I think it's going to be scary. I do agree. I think that first half is going to be a bit of a letdown, and Purdue might even end the half out on top, and Oregon might be
Okay.
in like oh crap my pants mode,
Right.
and
Okay.
um and it could look like Ryan Brown is the truth, and all of that magic is there, and I'm seeing it. I'm seeing this as a possibility of looking a lot like the Illinois game, except for the fact that Purdue is the one who comes out hot in the first half. And then I see Oregon battling back and getting their stuff together and doing what they do and being the more talented team on the field and ending up winning and maybe even by a couple scores. But I think it's going to be scary up into the fourth quarter is the way I see this going.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your final score?
I have Oregon 35, Purdue 28.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be quite that dramatic.
Okay.
I think Oregon's going to I think like Purdue's going to have their fun on offense for a while, but I think when Oregon throws the hammer down, they're going to throw the hammer down. So I've got the Oregon Ducks 42, Purdue Boilermakers 20.
Okay.
All right, next up, and the rest of these games will be played on Saturday, October 19th. We have a game, John, that I have had circled for a couple weeks now.
Same.
The 5-1 Nebraska Cornhuskers going to Bloomington to take on the number 16, 6-0 Indiana Hoosiers. This is an 11 a.m. game on Fox. In fact, John, it's the Big Noon game live, and Big Noon is live from Bloomington for this
Wow.
game. So that's a big deal. Has Indiana ever had game day?
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
think so. I don't know for sure, but I don't think so.
If they did, it was a long time ago, man.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, it's kind of wild.
Uh-huh.
And I look at, and the line is Indiana by 6.5. So John, I look at this right off the bat. Nebraska ranks 7th in the country in scoring defense, and Indiana ranks 2nd in the country in scoring offense. So the unstoppable force meets the immovable object on Saturday, and how that matchup goes will in large part define this game, I think. Hoosiers QB Curtis Rourke has the highest QB rating in the entire Big Ten, but I think the best defense he's faced ranks in the 50s nationally, so he hasn't been tested that way. Nebraska, by contrast, has the advantage of having played Colorado, who is also a prolific passing team like Indiana. The difference is that Colorado is a one-dimensional passing team, whereas the Hoosiers have a running game also. Indiana also ranks 11th in scoring D, so they have been efficient on that side of the ball as well, but once again, they haven't played anybody very good. So this is a really fascinating matchup to me. John, what do you think about this game?
I think this is a great test for both teams. Because you could argue that Nebraska, sure, Colorado was maybe a bit of a test, but Nebraska hasn't played, anyone super tough at this point either. I thought Rutgers was going to be, which they were actually. That was a tough game.
Yeah.
But Nebraska, it just felt like they had that in hand the whole time, even though it was very close. I think that where Nebraska succeeds is at the line of scrimmage on that defensive line. They're exceptionally good there, no doubt. And I'm sure they will probably get to Curtis Rourke or at least pressure him all night. But I'm not sold on Nebraska's secondary. I'm not saying they're bad, but I don't think they're fantastic.
Right.
And Indiana's receivers and Curtis Rourke are so freaking good and have so much talent and a lot of speed. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to handle that all 4 quarters. And with a good enough running game, which Indiana has been able to produce, I just think Indiana's offense could outlast Nebraska's defense. Because I don't trust that Nebraska's offense is going to be able to put enough points. I could be wrong, and maybe Royola is going to have a better game, but he hasn't been impressing the last few weeks. So I think he's a good quarterback, but I still think he's showing that he's a freshman. Where Curtis Rourke is very apparent, or it's very apparent that he's a veteran.
He's a senior.
So talented. Yeah. So I think this is going to be a good test. I think it's going to be close that first half, maybe a little bit of back and forth, but I just think Indiana's offense has too much firepower. And I can see this coming away in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, I see this ending with Indiana winning 38 to Nebraska's 24.
A lot of points. Okay. Interesting.
I think most of those points come in like the fourth quarter. I think it's just that like Nebraska's defense gets tired of being on the field, and like that's where that comes from. I don't think otherwise I think it'll be close, probably even well into the third, but then just the floodgates open.
No, I meant for both teams even. I feel like it's a lot of points. That's a lot of points for both. I think whichever team's receivers make more explosive plays, whichever team has their receivers make more explosive plays, that team wins this game. Nebraska wide receivers Isaiah Nair and Jamal Banks are both 6'4", and they provide matchup issues in the red zone due to their impressive length. I'm going to be watching to see how those two do making plays against this Hoosier secondary, because Nebraska needs chunk passing plays if they're going to have a chance to keep up with Indiana. They also need to keep this explosive Hoosier offense off the field as much as possible. So it'll be up to running back Dante Dowdell and that running game to keep the ball in Nebraska's hands. I think Nebraska has to win the time of possession battle if they're going to win this game. I just don't see a way that they like. I can't see where Indiana has the ball most of the time and Nebraska wins. Like that doesn't seem. Whereas it just doesn't seem likely to me. So to me, this comes down to whether or not Indiana wide receivers Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper, Miles Price, and Miles Cross. What did they do? They've been making plays all year. And Elijah Surratt in particular has been fantastic. Mm-hmm. So do they make plays consistently enough against a good Huskers D? And also, can Indiana block Nash Hutmacher? That's a question. Because this Indiana, remember, they had a starter go down in the preseason for the year. So they were down a guy to start with, and that offensive line was supposed to be one of their shakier units also. We haven't seen that, but we haven't seen them play against a very good defensive line yet.
True.
So I think Indiana hasn't seen a guy like Nash Hutmacher. I think that he's going to get after Curtis Rourke, and I think that he's going to make things really tough, and we're going to have a slugfest. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be a possession game. I think the first half or 3 quarters are going to be really grinded out, ugly football. But I just can't pick Nebraska here. I can't. They might win. But until I see the Hoosiers fail, I can only assume they're going to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at. And I just think sometimes teams have so much momentum. And I just think Cignetti has got something. And Curtis Rourke, man. Curtis Rourke is the best quarterback in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And if you have the best quarterback, you've got a real shot. So I have the Indiana Hoosiers 27, the Nebraska Cornhuskers 17.
Okay.
I think it's close. I think they grind it out. I don't see a ton of points here until late in the game. And then I think Indiana pulls off, a couple big deep plays. Maybe a trick play, maybe a flea flicker or something. Mm-hmm. But I think that you're going to see Cignetti go into his bag in this game.
And there's the other factor right there is Cignetti. Sorry. I just that man, he's made a believer out of me. He really has. I think
same.
As of right now, he deserves to be Big Ten Coach of the Year, and there's no one else who's even.
It's close. Not even close. I put that poll on Twitter, and he got like 80% over 80% of the vote.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm gonna show. We'll represent the hat. Yeah, got Love that it. IU hat. So I will be rooting for IU on Saturday, but I think this is going to be the best game of the weekend.
I agree, man.
I'm really excited to see it.
For this one.
I think it's going to be, and here's the thing. If Indiana wins this game, then it's time to start talking about the Hoosiers in the college football playoff. And the Big Ten title race.
Do you think the national media will actually go for that?
They're not going to have a choice, John.
I know, but I just don't know if it's
Indiana wins. They're going to be in the top 15 and
I agree.
Undefeated go in late October.
I agree. I just it's such a thing. I can't fathom ESPN actually. I mean, they'll cover it, but I feel like it's going to be more or less like this is just like a fun, dalliance into low level Big Ten teams. That's what they'll play it off as.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think if they beat Nebraska, that legitimizes a lot.
I agree. I just don't know if they're gonna treat it that way fully, the way it should be, But again,
and then after that, you've got Washington, and Washington is no joke either, right?
Yeah.
And then later, Indiana has Michigan and Ohio State, and then we'll know what's up.
I mean, to be honest, I feel like at this point, I'd pick them over Michigan.
Absolutely, I'd pick them over Michigan. You have to score a certain amount of points to keep up with Indiana.
Yeah.
How many teams can score enough points?
Ohio State's the only one that I would say on their schedule that could. In my opinion.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
So And if the Hoosiers go 11-1, you have to then you have to put them in the college football playoff. You have to.
Yep. Yep.
No, but I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes, I know. It's just this is
but
exciting.
I'm excited. It's exciting times. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
Shout out to all our friends at the All For You pod, living the season of their lives right now.
Yep. Yep.
They're where we were in 2019, and it's a heady feeling.
It's got to be nice. Good for you guys.
Seriously. All right. Next up, we have the 4-2 Wisconsin Badgers going to Evanston to take on the 3-3 Northwestern Wildcats. This is an 11 a.m. game on the Big Ten Network. The line is Wisconsin -7. Wisconsin executed a second consecutive blowout on Saturday, John, beating Rutgers to a pulp 42-7. The sheer tenacity and physicality that Wisconsin played with overwhelmed Rutgers, just as they overwhelmed Purdue the week before. Running back Tawi Walker was the star, going for nearly 200 yards, and for a second week in a row, Braden Locke played really well. I bring this up because Wisconsin is finally settling into an identity as a power running team with a QB who makes enough plays to keep defenses honest. That is a good place for Wisconsin to be at the midpoint of the season when you consider they lost Tyler Van Dyke and had to reorient their whole offense around Braden Locke midseason. Similarly, after a rough start to the year, Northwestern made a QB change, benching Mike Wright for Jack Lausch. And while it did not provide immediate dividends, Lausch really struggled for those first couple weeks. He's gotten better. And he's grown into the role, and Northwestern has continued to improve, and they absolutely shellacked Maryland 37-10 last week. So we have two teams here coming off big, emphatic FU dominant Big Ten conference victories. And that makes for an interesting game this week, I think. I think we've got two confident teams coming into this game. You know, Lausch isn't always that accurate, but his completions go for big yardage, and Bryce Kurtz and AJ Henning are dynamic players at receiver, you know? My question in this one is whether Wisconsin receivers Will Pauling and Vinny Anthony can get going. Yeah, they'll run the ball with Tawi Walker, but can they keep Northwestern honest by making plays down the field in the passing game? That's going to decide the game, in my opinion. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I agree. I think we've seen Wisconsin return back to who they always should have been. And you saw that with Tawi Walker last week.
Just about 200 yards. Yeah.
Yeah. Run the damn ball. So I think with that, I'm expecting to see a lot of the same from Wisconsin. I'm expecting to see that Northwestern, although has been effective with Jack Lausch, they don't have the running game. They don't have the balance that I feel like Wisconsin has the potential of having. Braden Locke is getting better each week. He's gaining a lot more confidence. So you got to give him that credit. I know that they don't have any receivers that are showing out in any big way, but they're becoming more consistent targets. So that's good.
Yeah.
So there's more balance there now with this Wisconsin team. And like I said, they're returning to their identity as a run first football team, which is what they do and what they always should have done. And their defense showed up pretty well last week as well, only holding Rutgers
really
to 7
well
points. So they're also finding themselves. So that's a big thing too here. Now, in Northwestern, they did the same, I think, against Maryland, obviously holding Maryland to 10 points, which they have the possibility of always, scoring a ton of points as well with their skill players. But it's kind of interesting watching these two teams like kind of find who they are in midseason,
Yep.
And Jack Lausch, you saw it a couple weeks ago, and then it really showed out this week. And this is who you got. And he's dynamic. He can run. He can throw. And he's a lot of fun to watch. I think this is going to be a close game, man. I think this is actually going to be a lot better game than what people might be predicting. I know a lot of people are still really down on Northwestern, and I get it. But this is a Wisconsin team that's also had plenty of struggles this year. It was not an easy 4 wins for them to get to other than last week, I think. So this is hard for me to pick. I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think it might help Northwestern playing at that field right on the lake, especially at this time of the year. It could limit Braden Locke from being able to pass the ball as well as he might want to. But since they have someone as dominant as Towie Walker, I think that's obviously going to work a little bit in their favor as well. So I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be low scoring. I see this one. I see this going in favor of Wisconsin strictly because of Towie Walker and him
Yeah.
really coming into his own. Uh, I see Wisconsin winning this game 24 to Northwestern's 17.
All right. Yeah, I see it very similarly to how you see it. I think Northwestern puts up a real fight, but ultimately, I don't think Northwestern's good enough in the trenches
Yeah.
to keep up with Wisconsin for 4 quarters.
Yeah.
So I think it's close at half, but the Badgers eventually pull away a little bit. I've got the Wisconsin Badgers 28, the Northwestern Wildcats 16.
Okay.
All right, next up, we have the 1-5 UCLA Bruins going to Piscataway to take on the 4-2 Rutgers Scarlet Knights. This is an 11 a.m. game on FS1. The line is Rutgers by 4.5. This is a game between a UCLA team that played pretty well against Minnesota, albeit in a loss, and a Rutgers team that is pissed off after getting run off the field against Wisconsin. QB Ethan Garbers and wide receiver J. Michael Sturdivant proved to be a great combination last week. I'd look for UCLA to focus on that combo in this game as well. Nothing worked for Rutgers last week. Star Rutgers running back Kyle Monungai was held in check, and QB Ethan Kaliakmanis could not hit the broadside of a barn as he completed fewer than a third of his passes. That's beyond terrible. So how do you think this one's going to play out, John?
I know you and I talked about this before. I think Rutgers should be on upset alert. I think UCLA, they are due, and I think UCLA has the ability to pull this off. I really do.
Yeah.
UCLA was prepared for Minnesota.
They were ready, man.
And they were executing very well through that first half. And even a little bit into the third quarter, you were able to see how UCLA was wanting to make, what they wanted to do was working. And against a very good Minnesota team, and they were able to pass the ball against one of the top rated passing defenses in the country.
Yep.
So
Sturdivant's he's legit.
Yeah. And we've seen this Rutgers secondary have some issues.
Yeah.
Where we didn't expect. I didn't expect. And I don't know if it's lack of leadership, but there's just times throughout each game where they just look like they're totally out of sync and they're all over the place. And then, the game gets out of hand just like it did against Wisconsin. So I just think that right now UCLA is in desperation mode.
Yeah, they are.
And I get it that Rutgers got ran off the field last week, but I just don't see them being in the same position that UCLA is in. And I think UCLA wants to prove themselves in the Big Ten, and they want to be able to beat one conference foe at least this season. And I think this is a good shot. I think Rutgers is reeling a little bit. I think they're having difficulty finding who they are. Their passing game is a total freaking mess since Ethan has now gone back into his shell and become who we saw him become.
Who we thought he was.
Exactly. And you just can't rely on Kyle Monungai because don't forget that UCLA, if I'm not mistaken, at least last week, was a top 25 run defense.
Yeah.
They're no joke either. They bottled up Darius pretty darn well. So
they swarm gaps. They attacked gaps. It was really impressive, actually.
Yeah. So Rutgers being very one-dimensional, I think they're in trouble. I see UCLA upsetting Rutgers this weekend.
All right. Calling the upset. Yeah. I like it.
I know they're traveling all the way across the country, but I think they're hungry. I don't think it's going to matter. And frankly, I also just think that whole thing is BS, but whatever. So the whole travel thing, but so I see UCLA winning this game, man. I see UCLA beating Rutgers 17 or UCLA 17, Rutgers 10.
Interesting. I really wanted to pick UCLA in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. I wanted to badly. I don't think the body clock thing is the biggest deal in the world, but 9 a.m. Pacific time, it's not. I don't love that. That's it seems like the later in the day you are in your body clock, the more functional you are athletically. But I think you're right. I think it's probably not a big deal. I think that's probably overblown. And these guys are all top tier athletes, and and these programs all put efforts into making sure that they're at their best all the time. So I think it's probably overblown. I do think Rutgers is the more physical team. And I think at home, Shianu's going to rally the boys. And I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be back and forth. But I just think that Kyle Monungai's got enough to get this done. So I've got the Rutgers Scarlet Knights 24, the UCLA Bruins 21.
Okay.
Boy, it's more fun that you picked the upset, though. I'm really jealous. I really am.
I mean, it's really, to me, it's more of a coin flip game. Like, it really is,
Oh, it is it's for sure a coin flip game.
Yeah. But, like, I don't know, man. I just got a feeling after what we've seen with UCLA, because they have not given up the fight. This is not a team that has rolled over and died in any game.
At all. No, they're playing hard.
Yeah.
And they've been competitive, at least in the first halves of every game.
And I feel like the ball is going to bounce their way at least one time. Maybe there's a pick six, maybe there's a turnover in the right spot, right time, and that's it. And that'll just be curtains for Rutgers in the game. That's kind of what I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
But also, yes, I mean, I could definitely see Rutgers winning this too, but I think it's going to be close either way.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Next up, we have the 4-2, number 24 Michigan Wolverines going to Champaign to take on the 5-1, number 22 Illinois Illini. This is a 2:30 p.m. game on CBS. Cue the horns, and the line is Michigan by 3.5. This is a monster game for both teams. Michigan absolutely has to win to keep whatever slim playoff hopes they still have alive. Illinois nearly lost to Purdue last week, but they remain 5-1, and their only blemish is to undefeated number 3 Penn State in a game where they did not get blown out. Although I wouldn't say the game was very close either. Penn State's defense was just dominated that game. So can Brett Bielema get over the hump against Michigan? He nearly beat them a couple years ago, and many people, myself included, think thinks the refs jobbed Illinois in that game and that they deserve to win that game. So can Illinois finish what they started a couple of years ago? And can Michigan have a resurgence with a third QB in Jack Tuttle? The offense looked better when they put Tuttle in against Washington. Is this the game where Michigan's offense finally looks functional enough because they have a QB who isn't a total liability? Or does this salty Illini D dominate? John, what do you think this game looks like?
I think it's such an interesting place for Michigan to be in right now, where I feel like no one has any faith in them whatsoever.
No.
Like at all. This is the defending national champs, and everyone I feel like is just out on them being good at all.
It's
crazy.
Well, because they're 4-2 and should be 3-3.
Yep. So, and I just feel like this Illinois team, yes, last week was crazy. But like we said, Purdue or teams like that can come out of nowhere sometimes, and if you're not looking, and prepared enough, it can be a problem. But Luke Altmaier still had a 91.8 QBR.
He's been lights out, man. You know what? Yeah. We were both wrong about him.
Yes, we were. Oh yeah.
But we weren't really wrong last year because he wasn't that good last year. Yeah. But what happened between last year and this year, like Bielema knew this was the kind of player he could be.
Yeah.
And now he's become that player, and he's a very, very good Big Ten quarterback.
Oh, yeah. And he's got fantastic targets to throw to downfield.
Oh, and Pat Bryant, Zachary Franklin. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, So it threw for
Illinois
three.
has always got a couple wide receivers. They always do for some reason.
Oh yeah. So in like he threw for 379 yards. I mean, 3 touchdowns. This guy
Yeah.
is the truth, and he can run. So
Yes.
so this is you're seeing a quarterback who could do it all essentially with Illinois. Plus, they have a pretty decent run game. You know, they
Yeah.
like Colin Dixon did all right. Zachary Franklin was able to even. I know he mainly catches the ball, but he was able to run as well. So you saw some plays going out there for everybody on that Illinois team, and they did really well. And so I think for me, you're seeing a more balanced team with the Illini, and
Yeah.
Michigan is so obviously one dimensional. Now, yes, Jack Tuttle, who we've been asking for since like I don't know the second game that Michigan was playing to start.
Yeah.
Maybe he's going to be able to like reinvigorate this offense, just like we saw with Brown at Purdue. But who are they throwing to though? Like, who are they going to throw to on that Michigan offense?
Colston Loveland, a lot.
But that's it.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
Penn State has only got a tight end too. It's working out for them.
that's true. That's true. That's true. Obviously,
No,
Iowa.
I'm with you though. I'm with you though. Michigan is basically Iowa, man.
They are.
They run the ball all the time.
Yep.
They have QB question marks, and their only consistent receiver is a tight end.
Yep.
And they have a great defense. They're Iowa.
Yep.
Which is not what Michigan wants to be.
No. So, and I also think Bielema is going to be out for blood, dude.
Oh, yeah, dude. He knows he got hosed against them last time, and he wants it bad, I'm sure.
And I also feel the national media is not on the side of Michigan. I feel like everyone wants to see them lose, and I feel like I'm not entirely sure the refs are going to protect Michigan this time. I know they did against us.
Illinois is the higher ranked team, man.
Yep. I think Illinois has an edge. I think coaching wise, they have an edge. I think talent wise, they have an edge. I see Illinois taking this, man. I do. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I see Illinois winning this game. And I have Illinois winning this game 28 to Michigan 24.
Interesting. Yeah, I want to pick Michigan here, mostly because I'm getting tired of Bielema winning. But right now, Luke Altmaier is playing lights out at QB for Illinois. Well, Michigan isn't even sure if they have a competent player at QB.
Yep.
So, yes. Do I like the athletes on Michigan's defense more than the athletes on Illinois' defense? Absolutely. But I think the offensive disparity is so great that Illinois has to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the keys are Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin. And I think those guys, I trust them to make plays downfield, and I trust Altmaier to get the ball there. And on Michigan's side, I don't trust the QB situation, and I don't trust the receiver situation. So yeah, I've got the Illinois Illini 24, the Michigan Wolverines 20.
Okay. Pretty similar.
Right on. Yeah, similar, but at least we're not right on this week. That gets creepy when we do that. We did that a little too much the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I felt like we did like 3 games, or it was like 2 or 3 games. I think we were exactly the same. Yeah,
they were exactly the same or within a point.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have the 3-3 USC Trojans going to College Park to take on the 3-3 Maryland Terrapins. It's a 3 p.m. game on FS1. The line is USC by 7. I don't have a ton to say about this game. I think that USC is pissed off and Maryland is reeling and seems to be totally lost. The Trojans have lost games, but they've been competitive. You know what I mean? Like they have Miller Moss does what Miller Moss does. They have the weapons. They have a guy. They make more plays on defense than they did last year. It's not like USC isn't competing. Maryland just got blown out by Northwestern 37-10. They've lost all the momentum they had earlier in the season. And aside from 2023, you could say that about just about every Maryland season under Mike Locksley.
Yep.
His teams don't seem to improve as the year goes on, and it leads to embarrassing games like this one. So I think Miller Moss is going to put up like 350 yards passing. And I think Woody Marks is going to put up like 125 yards rushing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is going to happen. I think Billy Edwards and Ty Felton and Caden Prather for Maryland will do their best to make things happen. But I just don't think it's going to be enough to deal with a talented and angry Trojans team. That said, it's also possible that USC just quits on Lincoln Riley at any point. I think that team is hanging by a thread. So these guys expected a playoff berth after they beat LSU to start the year. To be 3-3 at the halfway point is not what anybody there signed up for. So will USC quit? That's my only question. John, what do you think about this one?
I see it exactly the same way. I don't have much to say either. I think both teams it's very apparent where they're at. Maryland is doing what Maryland does, which is ridiculous how this keeps happening.
Every year, man.
Yeah, but yet every year they're talked about like, oh, they really did this.
Because they always look amazing in September. They always do.
Yeah, it's true, and then
clicking on all cylinders, putting up numbers, being dynamic, and then it all comes apart at some point.
But, there's no reason USC should not win this game, period.
No.
And if you don't, then you do have some serious issues going on.
And Lincoln Riley isn't the guy if you
he's
lose
not.
This game to Maryland.
Yeah, and even if the team does quit, honestly, there's just no excuse. You can't defend a loss like this. I know that for USC fans out there who look down upon programs like Minnesota and Maryland, whatever.
Well, you don't get to look down at Minnesota anymore, but go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, they still do, even though,
Yeah, but
what happened.
I know, but you can't. Anyway, go on.
I'm with you. But the fact is, though, is like, this team right now with the state that they're in, there is no excuse for losing this game.
No.
So I don't expect you to. I expect the same thing. I think Miller Moss is going to go off. I think Woody Marks is going to go off. I'm actually kind of expecting Lincoln Riley to maybe actually stick with the run game more, and maybe Woody Marks I think he could reach up to 200 yards, man. I really do.
Okay.
Because I don't think this Maryland defense has what it takes. And
no.
I just think if you can take some of that pressure off Miller Moss and let Woody Marks do what he has been able to do against every team.
Yeah.
And
he's
let
far
him
exceeded my expectations. That's for sure.
And then maybe Miller Moss will be able to relax a little bit and not have all the pressure, the weight of the world on him to win each game, as if you let the run game do what it has been doing well and successfully. So if Lincoln Riley isn't a total moron and he actually lets the run game do what it's been doing and let Miller Moss do what he does only when necessary, then I think it's fine, man. I think you're going to be okay against this Maryland team. I agree. I think they're reeling. Yes, Billy Edwards Jr. is great. He's always putting up numbers. They've got some great receivers to throw to, but they have zero running game. Their offensive line is, once again, awful. And their defense is questionable all over the field. So I agree. I think they should win, but, with relative ease. And if they don't, then Lincoln Riley, maybe that talk about him leaving USC might need to get a little louder than it already is, which it is pretty loud already.
It's true.
So I have USC winning this game outright. 38 to Maryland's 14.
All right. I have the USC Trojans 42, the Maryland Terrapins 20. So pretty similar once again.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have our last game of the night. We've got the 4-2 Iowa Hawkeyes going to East Lansing to take on the 3-3 Michigan State Spartans. This is the 6:30 p.m. game on NBC. It is the Big Ten Here Comes Saturday night game. Sparty has had 3 consecutive losses. There's no excuse for the loss to Boston College, but you can forgive the Spartans for losing badly to Ohio State and Oregon. Now they get Iowa. And what they need to do, if they're going to have a chance against Iowa, is get more consistent play out of Aiden Childs, who has completed just 57% of his passes and has 5 TDs to 8 picks. That is a brutal TD interception ratio. You're not going to win a lot of games throwing that many picks. So Michigan State needs to get Lynch Adams and Carter going in the running game against Iowa. because you know Iowa's going to run the ball. You need to run the ball to keep the pressure off that defense. I think Sparty needs receivers like Marsh and Foster and the tight end Velling to really step up if they're going to have a chance. That said, Iowa star running back Caleb Johnson's having a season for the ages. He is, people say he's the second best running back in the country behind Boise State's Ashton Jeanty, but unlike Jeanty, Johnson plays in a difficult defensive league, and it hasn't slowed him down even a little bit. Johnson is already nearing 1,000 yards on an unheard of 7.9 yards per carry. This man is just quite simply the best Iowa running back since Sean Green. Iowa does not have much of a passing game with what I'm calling a diminished version of Cade McNamara, who is not physically what he was when he was a playmaker at Michigan. He's just not the same guy. This version of Cade isn't very good and can't do much damage, but will he need to? Iowa threw the ball fewer than 15 times last game. The plan for Kirk Ferentz, as it is for Cade, as it is for all his quarterbacks, is to do as much as he can to eliminate Cade's impact on the offense as much as possible. And to be fair to McNamara, he doesn't really have anybody to throw it to either. Because of that, Iowa's running the ball more than the service academies lately. And it's working. So, John, what do you think about this game?
I think this is a more interesting game than what maybe others may perceive. I'm sure a lot of people expect Iowa to run away with this, which I think, of course, the potential is there. Mm-hmm. But I have a feeling that after, of course, the shellacking from Ohio State and Oregon and the close game to Boston College, I feel like Michigan State just has something to prove.
They definitely do.
I think, and it's not for lack of talent. It's just Aiden Childs needs to settle down, and he needs to, if he can focus, he's a playmaker. He can be a stud. And Iowa's secondary is not what we're used to seeing. Not to say it's bad, it just is not as good as it was.
It's true.
So if they can get that pass game going, I think they can be a threat. Now, with Iowa's offense, they're going to be without their left guard Stevens and their tight end Ostrenga. So those are two big losses for them.
Yep.
Now, of course, Caleb Johnson can still do what Caleb Johnson does, and he can be amazing. But I think without those extra blockers, especially Ostrenga, who's been doing great blocking for him and creating that, protecting.
Yeah, he's a really good player.
Yeah, I think that could cause some problems here, but we still haven't seen Michigan State's defensive line be dominant at any point in time. So I think this could be a close game until maybe partway through into maybe the second half. I think Michigan State can hang through a half and put up some points against this Iowa secondary. But I think Iowa's going to do what Iowa does, and they're going to wear you down. And as long as Caleb Johnson is healthy, that's all it's going to take. I don't expect Cade McNamara to do anything again, which has been pretty much status quo.
Right.
But I don't think Iowa's going to score 40 points like they did against Washington. I think Joe Rossi will have this team better prepared. So I see Iowa winning this game 24 to Michigan State's 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. I think I just can't. When the way Caleb Johnson gets to the edge on that stretch play, and he gets there so fast and so decisively, and they block it so precisely, and I just think that it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be close for a half, but ultimately I think Iowa is just going to wear Michigan State down.
Yeah.
So I've got the Iowa Hawkeyes 31, the Michigan State Spartans 13.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, man. As long as Caleb Johnson is healthy, dude, it's just hard to stop that right now. And with that, if with a pretty healthy offensive line, I think Iowa is going to continue to win games against most teams. And It's just hard, man. It's really tough when you face up when you're playing against a running back like that just can keep going and going and going and going and like when Mo Ibrahim at Minnesota, like
Yeah.
that's what Minnesota did, and that's how they won games. It wasn't always pretty, but got the job done. So
Yeah.
you have a workhorse like that, it's
And
dangerous.
Caleb Johnson has more top end speed than Mo ever had.
Yep. Yes, he does.
So the only good thing I can say about Caleb Johnson, other than how great he is that he'll probably be in the NFL next year, because I'm pretty sure he's a junior, and there's no way you're staying in school after the year he's having.
Yeah. You go, and I hope you're going to do great in the NFL.
You're going to be great in the NFL, buddy.
Yep.
You're going to be awesome.
You should do it now. Do it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Trust us. You're going to be great. You'll be
the
glad
league's
you did.
made for you. And I actually believe that. That's the thing. I actually believe that he's going to be like a baller in the NFL.
I do too. I just want you gone. I don't want you
Yes.
playing for Iowa anymore.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
please. Yeah, definitely don't come back for a senior year. Please don't. We don't need that. I don't need another year without the pig. I don't need that in my life at all. All right, John, we got through previewing all these games. And if you had told me before the year that we were both going to pick Indiana to beat Nebraska and we were both going to pick Illinois to beat Michigan, I think we would have both been pretty surprised.
Yeah, absolutely.
To say the least.
It's wild. This has been an amazing year. I love the parody.
Yes.
Which is another reason why the Rudy Project should just go away. We don't need that crap.
Nope.
So let's keep this the way it's going. College football fans are having more fun than ever. And I know you and I are, and it gives us so much more to talk about.
Absolutely.
It makes it so much more interesting. So
way more interesting.
Yeah. Well, all right. On our way out, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can email us at We Live for Saturday, B1G@gmail.com.
And also, you might notice from our section we did early in the show that Matt Rules Smock, right?
Yep.
I was going to say Smock Rule, but no, Matt Rules Smock made a request about something on the show, and we did it on the next show.
There you go.
If you want to see something on the show or hear, let us know, and we'll try to hook you up.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, have an awesome weekend watching football. I know I'm excited to watch football this whole bye week with no stress as we watch everyone else struggle for supremacy. Can't wait to do it. We will see you all on the review show on Monday.